Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. I'm Evan Mack, joined as always by Ross Reed. You can follow us on social media. I'm at the Real Evan Mack. Ross is at Ross Reed. It's been a long time coming, Ross. Remember, if you missed any of our previous episodes, like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. We're on all the audio format only options as far as Spotify, your iTunes. We're streaming live on YouTube right now. If you want to comment, of course, feel free. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you are old barfly, then welcome back. But how you doing, Ross? What's going on? It's July. Summer's almost over.
Summer's almost over.
Through my fingers.
I've interrupted a very important game of NCAA 25 here and to do this tonight. So in the middle of recruiting a nice 5-star linebacker to UCF. Go Knights.
UCF. I was about to say, what dynasty are you working with here?
Yes.
Shit, how is it?
It's awesome. It's like being in your 20s and 30s all over again.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played an NCAA since like high school, and then I added all my high school football team players and shit like that, nerded out. It was a lot of fun. Good times. That aside, video games aside, of course, we are talking Bears a lot throughout the show as training camp is underway for the Chicago Bears, and a lot of storylines ahead of Hard Knocks beginning a week from Tuesday, I believe. It's like August 8th, something like that. So we'll look ahead to that. How much Hard Knocks do we actually need with this Giants Hard Knocks, mid-season Hard Knocks? It's all exhausting. Talk about some other NFL offseason storylines. The Olympics are about to be underway. They're already kind of underway, but the opening ceremonies are tomorrow, and so we'll talk about that as well. What we're watching, all sorts of things. The Drake Kendrick beef, if that's over, if we're going to see any more from that. Surprises along the way, as usual. But to begin, we will talk about the Bears, of course. And, the good news is that Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, were getting deals done or have gotten deals done where that is sort of a load off a lot of Bears fans' minds when they can enter camp and just go ahead and get a full camp, and there's no contract dispute, that we're seeing around the NFL. Certain other camps are, mired in that sort of problem where they have to get these players deals done. That aside, your two big rookies are locked up now. You're getting into camp relatively healthy, which is nice. And, the storylines certainly are, I think, obviously this offense being revamped with the big additions of Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. Obviously, your number one overall pick, Caleb Williams, being huge, but now you just even escalate that wide receiving core that much more when you're building off of DJ Moore and getting two huge receivers, one a vet who has put up, great numbers every year. The only down years are the ones with injury, with the Chargers, and now with a fresh start for him. And then Rome Odunze, arguably one of the best receivers for sure in this draft. And so, you're looking at the defense and the clock ticks. Are the Bears going to add another pass rusher perhaps? And then the record, will that improve as well? But as far as your favorite storyline, I know there's multiples that we'll see in Hard Knocks coming up soon, and the Bears should be very entertaining to watch with all the fresh faces and with just a fresh start into the season. But what jumps out to you as far as what to look forward to as training camp begins, Ross?
I think all of us have all eyes on this rookie class, right? Obviously, front and center is the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams. He's been, having some wild throws already in practice today. The Bears actually just tweeted out one about 5 minutes ago that he has to Keenan Allen, which is just a really fun throw. We want to see Roman Dunze out there. Tyreek Stevenson today marveled at how much of a technician he is out there and how swift he is and shifty. But there are other rookies as well. Austin Reeds can be an up and coming. He's a guy that is going to battle at the quarterback position for maybe a third spot. Ian Wheeler is a running back that I mentioned last time. I think we talked about him being a potential kickoff return guy and a special teams guy. Obviously, Torrey Taylor is going to get some buzz as the Aussie punter. And then for me, it's Austin Booker. Austin Booker is a defensive end that I think can get a lot of snaps this year for the Bears, depending on if they do something in terms of signing a veteran, between now and week one. Obviously, there's been a bunch of guys out there that, Yannick Ngakoue, who they had last year before he got hurt, is still a free agent right now. There are a couple more names out there. There are a couple more guys that are going to be cut. But I think Austin Booker can really be a pass rushing specialist year one opposite, guys like Montez Sweat. We've heard that Dexter Jr. Has come into camp slimmer than last year. He looks like he might play a little bit more outside this year. He might rotate inside and outside. So the rookie class is going to be exciting. And then, obviously, I think the two strengths of this team right now are the wide receiver group and the cornerback group. And those have potential to be top 5 position groups in the NFL on both sides. So to see both of those sides battle against each other and then to see the big personalities from both sides is going to be exciting too.
Yeah, no question. And you touched on Yannick Ngakoue and, are the Bears a pass rusher away from really elevating themselves? I mean, last year, even with the addition of Montez Sweat, they finished with the lowest sack percentage and second fewest sacks in the league. So you hope that Austin Booker could be a gem, and Ryan Pace knows what he's doing drafting a guy there. And that leads you to the players with the most to prove. And that's certainly of this rookie class. There's no huge expectations. Certainly Caleb Williams, you want to see a pretty solid rookie year to jump in and be competitive. Same with Rome Odunze and him getting significant reps, but it's going to be hard. The reality is, with a rookie quarterback to spread the ball around as a lot of people would want, between all the weapons he has. We didn't even mention Cole Kmet too in this conversation, but Velus Jones is a guy whose name is going to be floated out there as well. Obviously on offensive line, you're looking at plugging the holes that you had last year. That's going to be important to buy a lot of time for your rookie quarterback as he adjusts to the speed of the game. And I mean, you could think of Tevin Jenkins. You could think of other significant players like that. I like your mention of the cornerback group as being pretty solid, as that secondary looks really solid too, to bolster that front seven to help out with a weaker pass rush. But, is there any guy that you've talked about or I haven't talked about as far as individuals that you have an eye on that have a lot to prove going into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to that cornerback group, all eyes are on Jalen Johnson. Obviously, he's probably going to be, he's right now a top 5, top 10 cornerback in the league, certainly getting paid by it. Tyreek Stevenson is a guy that flashed very well last year as a rookie. But to me, I think right now Kyler Gordon is a little bit of a guy that we are all sleeping on. And he could be one of the best, if not the best, nickel corner in the league this year. Remember, he's been awesome in coverage. He was awesome in coverage last year, really flashed. He's got, ball hawk potential. He can take the football away. And also he's a willing tackler when he gets close to the line of scrimmage. So I think Kyler Gordon is the guy this year that could really step up for the Bears and have a Pro Bowl caliber season and really turn some heads and start to be a household name around the NFL. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he develops as he is healthy during this offseason. He's healthy coming into training camp. That's very important. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. And if he does, the Bears have a very friendly opponent in terms of shutting down the pass game in Week 1 in the Nashville Titans. And I can see a guy like Keller Gordon coming off the bat right away and having a really big game and putting his name out there for everybody, just putting everybody on notice.
I like it, Ross. As far as the center battle, I was reading up on that earlier, and Ryan Bates and Coleman Shelton, the two new additions, kind of battling out for the center position. It's going to be important to, really firm up that left side. We know the right side's pretty set with Tevin Jenkins and Darnell Wright. But Ryan Bates and Coleman Shelton, it remains to be seen, obviously, as we get into training camp, and I'm sure that'll be monitored a lot on Hard Knocks, as will be, of course, the entire offense. But you have an edge with either of those guys. Shelton, playing a lot of snaps for the Rams and Bears, taking a lot of tabs on and keeping their eye on, I should say, on Ryan Bates from Buffalo.
Yeah, I think Ryan Poles went after Ryan Bates specifically to be the starting center. Remember, he signed him to an offer sheet, a couple of years ago. Buffalo matched the offer sheet, and he was eventually able to get his guy out of Buffalo. I think that's going to be your starting center right now. I think you're going to see an offensive line of left tackles. Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins will be a left guard. Ryan Bates is center. Nate Davis will be your right guard. He's still the veteran out there. And then Darnell Wright, of course, your rookie from last year. But Bates is going to get every opportunity to be the starting center. I think he's going to take it. I think a guy like Shelton provides you good depth, and you're going to need that, because we've seen in the past guys like Jenkins, guys like Davis have gone down in injuries. Even a guy like Bates, he's not used to being a starter for 17 straight games. So, having Shelton and even, Ja'Tyre Carter back those guys up is going to be important. But for now, the edge goes to Ryan Bates for me, just because I think Ryan Poles and that front office and that coaching staff really value what he brings to the table.
Yeah, Nate Davis, speaking of guys you have your eye on who have a lot to prove, I feel like after last year getting signed to the Bears and missing significant time for one reason or another with personal issues and injury issues, you really want to see him step up and be a veteran leader on this offensive line and really pave ways for the running backs and protect Caleb Williams really well. So, the report today on as far as highlights from the offense in 7-on-7, we saw Caleb Williams throwing touchdowns to DeAndre Swift and Velus Jones in 11-on-11 work. He was really gunning to Keenan Allen. He just showed really good accuracy. Coach Matt Eberflus said, quote, his accuracy is really good, not only in the pocket, but on the move. When you get the off-scheduled throws like you do a lot of times, like we see in the red zone across the league, that's really important that those are accurate, and he's able to do that for sure. Gerald Everett, all these guys are really speaking highly of Caleb Williams and his ability to learn quickly, which we've talked about on the podcast before. And that's everything that every scout and executive, I feel like, agreed on when they were talking about the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft in Caleb Williams. Just, not being able to say anything really bad about him. So I'm curious to see it as we approach Hard Knocks, if we're going to see a turn and teammates turn on him for a little, HBO Max drama at this point. But, as far as any other storylines that we didn't discuss, obviously Caleb Williams doing the claw and maybe exploring the Viagra Triangle or boats or some shit. What else are we going to be looking forward to in this Hard Knocks coming up in almost like a week at this point?
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to get a lot of footage from this week. I'm sure they have got footage from Caleb and Rome signing, as the Hard Knocks cameras were already in the building when those guys signed right before rookies reported to camp. I'm hoping that we get some nostalgic throwback love for Devin Hester and Steve McMichael. Those are two, obviously, Hall of Famers that are going in. They're going to be going in wearing Bears jerseys. We already know about Steve McMichael's health issues. Thankfully that he's been able to make it this far to be able to see himself inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I hope we get a lot of old school footage and some cool content from him and Devin Hester as well. Listen, it's very rare as an athlete that you can say you were the best ever at what you did. And he was clearly the best return man of all time. And I think he needs to be celebrated. He has spoken a lot about, his own mental health issues from when he left the game and his, kind of the way he went out, and he wasn't too happy with that. And he really struggled to find love with football until he started coaching his own son, playing football. He found love again with the game. So it's going to be really cool to see him out there as well. Even Julius Peppers, who is not going in technically as a Bear, but he has some great years here in Chicago as a Chicago Bear. So he needs to be celebrated with that as well. And then, like you said, just putting the city of Chicago on display is always exciting. We have had a very busy summer here, right? We've had NASCAR here, and Lollapalooza is here next week. And there's a ton of cool and fun things in the city. It's been named, one of the 5 best cities to visit to from a tourist standpoint. It was named the most walkable city in the world, and so being able to see Chicago as a whole is going to be really cool. I'm watching, I'm watching The Receiver right now on Netflix, and they're kind of showcasing some of those guys and some of the towns that they're in. But I also watch Sprint. We're going to get to the Olympics a little bit too. I watched Sprint. And the way they were able to showcase on that show just some of the cities that they went to for some of these matches was really, really cool. And I can't wait to see Chicago to get that kind of love too.
I like it. Like you said, I mean, I echo everything you said. This is the time of year to be here as well for anyone who has not visited Chicago. It's crazy that they always come in the winter or something like that. But it's also obviously very fun and fall come football season. But it's crazy that the Bears are having all these preseason games too, where they already play a week from tonight, in the Hall of Fame game against the Texans, whose regular season opponent will be there. And that's the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. And so Coach Eberflus needs to make a decision too, whether Caleb Williams is going to play. And he said, quote, "We've talked about it, had lengthy conversations about it during the personnel meetings, had it with the coordinators before that, been talking to Ryan Poles, will make a decision here soon." With that in mind, I just feel like it's not even worth it to really trot out the starters when there are so many preseason opportunities for Caleb Williams to get reps. I mean, even a series. I don't know where your head's at with it, Ross. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's I go both ways, and I think even as parents, we always are like we get that, like, we want to bubble wrap the kids and stuff like that, and we want to put some bubble wrap as parents around, especially Caleb Williams, but also Roman Dunze and some other guys. But on the flip side of it, it is football, and these guys need to feel the contact. They need to put the pants on and the pads on, and they need to be able to hit somebody other than their teammates. They do put pads on for the first time tomorrow. And so I do think that, given the fact that these guys are rookies, and Roman Dunze and Caleb Williams, it does not hurt them to get one series of snaps out there, because it's bigger than the actual in-play game part of it. It's you have to start getting the preparation of being able to prepare for the mental preparation of being able to prepare for an NFL football game. That means the travel. That means getting ready in the locker room. That means the Monday Night Football cameras are on the field, and who's Joe Buck is going to want to talk to you, and Troy Aikman, and those are things that you have to prepare for now as an NFL player versus playing at 9:30 at night in the whatever the hell they call that shit now, the Pac 45, or I don't know what it is now. But those are the things that that's very different. And so I think for that, it's worth them getting out there and getting at least one series. And then after that, I whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I would pull them after that.
Yeah, it goes back to as well, if they play a series, that's fine. Again, because the Houston Texans are of the same mindset, I feel like, with CJ Stroud and company. For those vets who have done this so many times before, it's less meaningful. But for these, especially rookies, adapting to the speed where it's a lot of trial by fire, it's pretty important to get up there and get as many reps as you can, especially when you're only less than a week of padded practice at this point here. So, on the note of Mongo and Devin Hester, it's also Walter Payton's birthday today. We have to, of course, say happy birthday to the great legend Walter Payton. Wish he was still here with us today, and wish he could see his team on Hard Knocks and how this team as formulated as the dogs bark happy birthday in the background. Yeah, I mean, I it's light right now as we're going to be gearing up for a lot of shows in August, getting ready for this Bears football season. But obviously, expectations are high on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball, and taking the right steps to be competitive again. You know, I saw a stat of just the big four Chicago sports of the Bulls and the Blackhawks, the Cubs and the White Sox. It's way under 500. It's like a 400 winning record, something like that. Just brutal. The White Sox, of course, are bringing that down by themselves. But you know, the Bulls in summer league, they're pretty encouraging. As with Buzelis and company, and now that we know DeRozan has moved on to the Sacramento Kings, which I think we didn't even do a show on that. Um, you know, we're getting closer to potentially getting more competitive there. We don't know what the Cubs are doing. They fill seats anyways. But we're just, I think all of Chicago collectively is waiting in bated breath with all this hype going up to the Chicago Bears season with Caleb Williams and the rest of this team. The way it's compiled, just really hoping that we get something, you know, in the right direction. I think people need to obviously curb their expectations with a young rookie quarterback like that, even with all the talent he has there. He's not going to be, you know, Pat Mahomes right away, right? So it is exciting. It's something to look forward to. And God help us. Hopefully we won't be let down.
Positive thoughts. We have to have positive thoughts right now. Listen, we cannot be cursed forever. Even the Cubs won a World Series. Listen, the Chiefs were a dire situation until Pat Mahomes landed on their doorstep. Even the New England Patriots were one of the worst teams in the 80s and 90s until they found a guy named Tom Brady in the 6th round. So you've got to have positive thoughts for the Bears. This does feel different. This feels like they have a competent situation even beyond Caleb Williams. I feel comfortable with Ryan Poles at the helm. I feel comfortable right now with Matt Eberflus. I certainly feel comfortable with Shane Waldron running this offense, a veteran guy, and stuff like that. So we have to have confidence as fans, but then we also, like you said, have to temper our expectations as well. So I think the biggest thing is we should all have fun because we might be witnessing something truly great. And we can at least look back at some point and say we were there when we saw it at the beginning. It's very reminiscent. You know, I'm a Sox fan, but I remember that Cubs run and all the young talent that they collected en route to that very special World Series. And you know, it's something that Cubs fans will never forget. Something that Chicago's never going to forget. I also remember the same thing with the Blackhawks when they stackpiled Duncan Keith and Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves and Bickle and so on and so forth. So it feels like we could be trending towards that. Let's hope that it's sustainable and because we deserve it. You know, this is a football city through and through, and we are, as fans, have been starving for good football for a long time now.
Yeah, no question about that. And then shout out to Keenan Allen. He was ranked number 51 on the NFL Top 100, and he's coming off a 108-yard receiving or reception season, and he's just a beast. I like these NFL Top 100 lists, and of course the only choice for number one consensus, even though Jamar Chase wouldn't say it, was Patrick Mahomes, of course.
Sure.
I think Montez Sweat was also in there. He was in the 90s, 80s.
He was 82, I believe he was.
82. Look at that. Oh, Jalen Johnson was in there too. Yeah. He's, as he is a beast. But Ross alluded to it. Receiver, on the note of sort of off-season activities, it is the answer to quarterback for Netflix following up that season of last season, I should say. And they're following Justin Jefferson, yep. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and I'm on
Devontae
Adams, and
Amara St. Brown. Yep.
And it is very entertaining. I'm not finished with it. You see, just like last season of quarterback, you see that some teams are obviously more competitive than others. It's obviously gearing up towards that Lions and 49ers NFC Championship. I mean, George Kittle is just always been so outspoken and wild, and seems like a fun guy to shotgun beers with. Deebo Samuel, it's nice to get a better look at him. I feel like, 3 episodes in, you see just it's not spoiling anything, but just how much of a toll this game takes on these guys' bodies, whether they're in their, fourth or fifth year, or whether you're in your eighth year, and most of that, they're all, besides Justin Jefferson, up there. You figure Devontae Adams and especially Devontae Adams and George Kittle are like the vets of this group. So you see them each kind of struggle with their own sort of injuries. Devontae Adams obviously was in a tough situation last year when he lost Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's dealing with his own injuries. There's him requesting a trade, and then we saw the elevation of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and of course Justin Jefferson dealing with his own issues too. But it's good, I think. Compared to quarterback, it's a good follow up. Have you enjoyed it so far, Ross? You got takeaways?
It is. It's good background noise for me. I think we're at the point right now with all these shows, for the most part, it's such a controlled environment for the athletes, and these athletes are so media savvy that I don't think we're getting so much. We're not getting wow content, but we're getting good insight into things, even beyond the football field stuff, the family situations. George Kittle with his wife, that was pretty cool stuff. Obviously Devontae Adams has an amazing family as well. Amon St. Brown comes from a Mr. Olympian family and speaks fluent German that we saw, right? And then, I think the biggest thing was the frustrations for a guy like Devontae Adams. This is a guy who was used to being with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he was used to the luxuries of that, and he did request out. He wanted out of that situation. He got to Vegas, which is basically where he's from, or near where he's from. He got to be with his old buddy Derek Carr, but then he was shipped away. And then now you start to see that take a toll on him, not only physically, but mentally. And you see what bad quarterback play does to wide receivers. I mean, he was getting destroyed out there, and he just had a down year compared to last year. And you have to wonder where he's at even now going in this year, mentally and physically, as their quarterback situation is still in flux right now. So I think overall it's a cool show. I think it's a cool concept. I don't think we get as much of the candid stuff that we get now, because athletes are just more savvy and more controlled. But all in all, I think it's still pretty cool. I think obviously pivot next year, we have to see some of the defensive guys. And to be honest with you, I've talked about this before. I think offensive linemen would be fun, right? Because those guys don't get much of the limelight put on them. But I want to see more of the lower level guys in the sport. I want to see some of the guys who have a $1,200 a month apartment because they're just trying to make ends meet. And every single guy in this series right now, these are all pros. It's easy to put them out there. These guys are all pros. They're all filthy rich, stuff like that. They're great guys, but it's okay, what about, if I were to put a Bears player behind it, right? What about Dante Pettis? Wouldn't it be cool to follow around Dante Pettis, who's been in this league for a long time, and he's just trying to scrape by every year to make sure he makes it to the next year and stuff like that. I think that
special teams guy, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is where the better content lies in, and go after one or two guys who are not household names. That's what Hard Knocks used to do, and that's how they got popular years ago. It's kind of showing you the guys that were battling for roster spot 53, and we started to fall in love with some of the guys around the bubble and stuff like that. I think that's where the series should trend. But Peyton Manning and his team, they do an awesome job with the production, the camera angles that they can get, the content during the games, the sounds. You had to turn down the volume because every other word was a curse word. So I had my kid over there, and it was that stuff is cool though.
It is, yeah. I mean, it definitely humanizes them. We feel like we see them, as you mentioned, just being a lot more close-lipped with the media and with cameras around them, as in these players, and not just receivers, but all these NFL players. Now it's evolved so much, especially this day and age where everything's being recorded, every second of it. So it's curious to see. I feel like the logical choice is just going to running back next, but I would like to see the offensive line angle. If you could get, Trent Williams in there or Penei Sewell, those guys are just monsters. But I hope we're not too far away from kicker. I would enjoy kicker.
I would too, actually. And get Torrey Taylor in there, right?
Torrey Taylor in there, get a punter, get a nice journeyman kicker. I'm sure Justin Tucker would be willing to do that as well. There's not a ton as far as off-season headlines, training camp headlines. I don't know if you watched any of the Hard Knocks with the Giants at all. I know that Saquon was a big subject of all of that, and as far as his treatment, and then some of the, obviously the Giants scouting the Bears' current talent and how they thought of Rome Odunze and their interviews with Caleb Williams, guys like that. But it kind of leads me to, I was talking about earlier, the ability for the Bears to now just focus on the field activities with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze all locked up. The Cowboys are this huge franchise, and the draft seemed like just a goddamn disaster for me, in my eyes, I should say, for this team. And then, they stress that massive contracts will take time, and I don't know, it seems like they have a pretty big problem on their hands with CeeDee Lamb, and just surrounding Dak with talent. Like, getting that locked up just seems like a no-brainer at this point. When Justin Jefferson set the new bar, it just seems pretty insane that they just aren't like throwing money at him at this point. Have you been following that at all, Ross?
Yeah, the Cowboys got a CeeDee Lamb problem, but they also have a Dak Prescott problem, as he looks to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. And then they're approaching a Micah Parsons problem as well. So they've got a lot of problems in Dallas. They've got to pay all three of those guys. You hit it on the head. The draft was, a little bit shaky, from what they had. This is basically an all-in season for them, because after this, their roster can look very, very different next year. I agree with you. CeeDee Lamb emerged last year as one of the three best wide receivers in the league. In my opinion, I think you have to pay him. But if you pay him, what does that leave you for, guys like Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons? I really think that this could be Dak Prescott's last year in Dallas, just because I don't know if, another storyline is Jordan Love, who's holding out right now as he's trying to get his contract situation done. These guys are approaching $50+ million a year. They're getting into the $60 million territory. And I think Jordan Love is going to get that probably sooner than later. He's getting that off of half a season of production, right? Or a season of production, I should say. And so if you're Dak, and Dak's been doing this for a long time, he's going to say, well, I deserve a little bit more than that. And I don't know if the Cowboys are going to be able to get there for him. And maybe they just press the reset button after the season and they fire McCarthy and they move on from Dak, and then they just go brand new quarterback. But even then, you still need to keep CeeDee Lamb and Marcus Parsons. Those guys are cornerstone franchise guys. So it's going to be a very interesting year for Dallas. I alluded to also, Green Bay. You got to listen. All your eggs are in the Jordan Love basket, so you got to pay him. You have to pay him, and we're already close to a week down in this standoff. I think that he's going to get that deal done, and then that also now the arrow points on Miami and Tua Tagovailoa. So it's like these are some quarterbacks out here which you don't feel great about when it comes to the playoffs, but they're going to get $60 million a year, and so that circles all the way back to the Bears. I'm so happy that we have Caleb Williams on a rookie deal for the next 4+ years, for probably 5 years, or pick up the option, extend him, whatever. And that's a big reason why Ryan Poles made the move in the offseason, right? To move on from Justin Fields to Caleb Williams. Is you have to reset that pay play clock, and obviously bring in a better talented player. But Pay has a lot of focus on this because these quarterbacks right now are about to get big time money, and you don't feel great about them in playoff games.
Well, yeah, but one guy you do feel good about in playoff games after last season, especially, is Brock Purdy. And I know that the 49ers are dealing with Brandon Ayuk and his own contract dispute with the Niners. But, after next year, then Brock Purdy is going to be in line for that kind of money as well. So that's a problem with the 49ers when they're already loaded and have to pay a lot of their offensive guys and still the offensive line. And so it's crazy to see the amount of money being shelled out at this point. So it kind of doesn't, not the best segue, but on the note of money, this offseason in the NBA is a big one, at least for, the TNT and Amazon bidding war to get the rights to broadcast games, and TNT just didn't handle it well. And so now we unfortunately have to bid farewell to what we knew as inside the NBA, which is pretty crazy. And now to see Amazon taking over, they're storming the NFL the past couple seasons and now going to the hardwood is pretty insane. But to the tune of a lot of money, you figure that it was sort of inevitable, but I hope that they can try to get a hold of some of the talent that, inside the NBA. I feel like Charles Barkley has said that he isn't going to, after this next season, going to come back and broadcast, but
he said that before.
Exactly, yeah, they're going to throw any amount of money at him. We know Charles, loves the almighty dollar as much as the next guy and Shaq and all these guys, but you think of the time they've put in, it just feels like it's a big loss for that sport to on that side of the camera to see that happen.
It is, and but it does make for a very interesting TV going into next year, where all these guys could be in a single year lame duck situation, which means they could say even more crazy, outlandish stuff than they normally do. I think the biggest takeaway is, obviously this will be Ernie Johnson's last year. Ernie Johnson is a 30-plus year veteran at Turner Network, and it'll be cool to see him get a full year swan song. I don't believe Charles Barkley for a second when he says that he's retiring and stuff like that. He's done this before, and then somebody shows up at his house with a bag full of money. He's like, okay, I'm back in. So it would not, behoove me to think that Charles would go to Amazon and maybe they switch up the format a little bit. Maybe they kind of make it like a talk show type style or something like that. And he brings a guy like Kenny Smith with him, and even Shaq and a couple other people. Even Charles can go to NBC and be up there on the set with with Kenny and Maria Taylor. There's options there. I think but if it is the end of the road for them, let's celebrate it. Let's have some fun. I mean, all great things come to an end. NBC is getting basketball back, but when I was growing up, the NBC show was the big it thing. And it was Bob Costas, and it was the music from John Tesh, and it was Peter Vesey on stage, and even Pat Riley had his couple turns up there. And so, if you're around long enough, you see a lot of these things come and go. So, and the NBA feels that they made the right decision. I think we're seeing right now, not only with the NBA, but just sports as a whole, streaming is where all of this is going. And I think that's why they wanted Amazon, is because Amazon can offer them a streaming situation that very few other networks can offer. And that transitions to, Black Friday games, and it transitions to Amazon's interface being able to, prime NBA jerseys. And let's say you want to win Victor Wembanyama jersey, and you can buy it now on Prime because they're in partnership. It's going to open the door for the NBA and Amazon to do a lot of other things that I think TNT just couldn't do.
Well said, Ross. I agree. And I mean, NBA on NBC, iconic, like you said, with the lineup they had. But of course, the theme song was incredible. And it was, I can only think of when they spoofed it on SNL, especially with Jason Sudeikis. But I digress, because the main event, Ross, that we wanted to talk about is, of course, the Summer Olympics, as they are almost underway. Speaking of great music, is it John Williams did this?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
John Williams.
Everything, man. Genius out there. It just gets you pumped. But I will say, as much as the music gets me pumped, that I feel like this basketball team has not gotten me pumped so far when they're phoning in a lot of these games. But you had the tweet of the day that when you talked about the potential candidates for the presidential election coming up, and saying that we can all agree that Gilbert Arenas needs to get the hell out of here. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but and Luol Deng had a very good take on that. If you follow him on social media, about his comments about South Sudan, just like what a fucking boneheaded look. And Paul Pierce had some comments too, but it was more in jest than Gilbert, and he apologized for them. Bad look, but it's also a bad look to almost lose to South Sudan and lose, to almost lose in these close games. But people forget that it is exhibition. I really do think that they kind of phone it in. And there's something to be said for how many personalities there are on this USA basketball team. But besides that, I mean, the expectations we could talk about to lead off. But I'm curious to hear what else you're watching after that, Ross.
Yeah, the basketball, of course, is going to be awesome. We get I think we get a big game even Saturday afternoon off the bat. I don't remember who it was. It might be like, I think USA plays Jokic like pretty quickly right off the bat on Saturday. But for me, I'm always a track and field fan. I love track and field. I think it's a premier sport in the Olympics. I think it's the most competitive one. This year, you've got Noah Lyles, who right now is contending to be the fastest man in the world. He's going to run the 100. He's going to run the 200 as well. And he's going to have some competition up there, on the ladies' side of thing. We have seen Sha'Carri Richardson have this rebound after she was eliminated from Tokyo 4 years ago due to the marijuana situation. But there are 3 women on the Jamaica side who are beasts. And then also we have, Gabby Thomas, who's a Stanford grad, and she's going to be running the 200. She's also a hurdler. So the track and field stuff is going to be very fun to me. I can't wait to watch that. Katie Ledecky, of course, who's kind of taken the reins as the dominant swimmer for our country. We're just, of course, we're going to see how many medals that she can win, because it's just going to be a foregone conclusion. She's going to win a bunch of medals. Let's just see how many she can get to. And then, of course, the main event is Simone Biles. Simone Biles is the best at what she does. ESPN came out with a list last week of top 50 athletes of the 21st century or something like that. And, she was in the top 10. And obviously she now becomes a hometown situation, as her husband, now Jonathan Owens, now plays for the Chicago Bears. He's been given permission to take 7 practices off to go to Paris to watch her perform. And proud of the Bears for doing that, because this is probably going to be her last Olympics. She's getting a little bit older, and I expect her to put on a masterclass display of some of the best gymnastics we've ever seen ever before, and let the GOAT right off into the sunset. And that's going to be must-see TV. And this is going to be cool to watch. If you do have Peacock, I suggested everybody kind of go through there and play around with it now. They're doing a bunch of cool things. They're doing like the 8 box where you can watch 8 things at once and go to the different screens. They've got Scott Hansen, who's going to be hosting the Gold Zone. So very much like the Red Zone, he's going to be able to go in live to certain things that are being going on in real time. Obviously Paris is a time difference, so we have to adjust to that. But it should be fun stuff. We could get some really exciting events early in the morning for breakfast.
That's true. And you were right. Serbia taking on USA men's basketball Sunday on the 28th. I echo everything you said. I think is especially track and field is appealing, but the Team USA has been very dominant in swimming and very dominant in gymnastics, largely because of those young ladies that you mentioned. Sha'Carri Richardson, who is just a really talented sprinter. It would be great to see her get gold and just to, obviously lead the pace and represent their countries. That's their goal ultimately. But circling back to this basketball team, as far as the USA is put together at this point, the expectations are always high when you field a team every 4 years like this, and to get anything but gold, it seems like a disappointment. But we do forget and put it in perspective with like the dream team when they competed against other countries. There were single-digit number of NBA players on these other teams. Now there's 60-some players. You look at Canada, and they're pretty close to as loaded as as the USA are, and so even Germany, even certain countries like that, or Australia, they have their fair shares of athletes that can then put a cohesive team together. Spain, obviously competitive as well. So it'll be curious to see if there's an upset early on or based on this exhibition play, if they're going to get it together, because this is also a big part of LeBron's swan song in his later, definitely his last Olympics, you would think at this point, with the cutoff. So he's he's happy to be playing with Steph Curry and KD and all these guys. I mean, these superstars. But if they come up short, that's just going to be another blemish on LeBron's career at this point.
It is, and you mentioned those other countries, and all those other countries, they play together throughout the 4 years. I think that's the important thing. So they all know each other's tendencies. They play well as a team. You hit it on the head, team. People were complaining as to why Jaylen Brown wasn't on this team as a 12th spot over Derek White. And it's like they're putting together a team, and they want Derek White because he's going to be okay sitting on the bench as the 12th guy for 90% of the time. But that 10% of the time where you need him out there for 3 to 5 minutes to play awesome defense, he's just a guy that's going to be humble enough to go out there and do that. And that's why he made that basketball team. It's not always the most talented guys out there, because there are some really talented guys for this USA team that are not out there. Talked about Jaylen Brown. Kyrie Irving is not on this team as well. There's some other guys out there. But it's about putting together the best team. And there are some guys that are going to need to humble themselves, in particular when it comes to the last 5 to 6 minutes of a basketball game. I feel comfortable about LeBron. I feel comfortable about guys like Steph Curry, even Kevin Durant. But I'm looking at guys like Joel Embiid, and I'm looking at a guy like Anthony Davis. Are you going to be able to play within the confines of the team that's needed to win gold, or are you going to do that hero ball stuff? This isn't like the 3-and-D guy in the corner. That guy in the corner is Steph Curry. You got to be able to pass him the basketball if he's open over you taking a back foot double team jump shot. And that's going to be interesting. At the end of the day, I still think the United States have the best team. I think they have some very smart guys. They have the most athletic players. I think they have the best bigs out there with Bam and Anthony Davis and Embiid. And so they're able to throw out some size and length at other teams. I think that's Canada's big trouble spot. And so I do think that the United States are able to win gold on both sides. We didn't talk about the women's team. The women's team is going to smoke every single team in the tournament by at least 15 points. Those women are dominant. Those women are going to smoke everybody. Asia Wilson and those women, they do not mess around. The men, they might struggle a few games. Those ladies, they're going to coast.
Yes, sir. Excited to see it all go down. And it's like you alluded to with Peacock and all the technology that we're able to take advantage of. It's necessary in certain days when you're able to juggle different sports and see that. It's so cool with everything going on at once. And that's a good addition of Scott Hansen. I was just reading about his red zone day schedule and how he just does not drink liquids, and he goes home and still looks at 5 screens, and that's his calm zone. I'm like, dude, just take a break, just go to bed. You were just going nonstop when Sunday Night Football rolls around. I would just be asleep. But he's very good at that. So it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts to calling all these other sports at that point. Talked about sports at length, Ross. Let's wrap up the show. Are you watching House of Dragon?
I'm a couple episodes behind. I need to catch up this weekend. I did finish Presumed Innocent. I won't spoil the ending for those that did not watch it. No. Yes, but shout out Apple. Apple puts out just tons of good content that nobody's watching or very few people are watching because they just don't market it. They'd rather market their next iPhone over some of these good shows. But I need to catch up on the House of Dragon. I do have 2 more. I'll catch up this weekend.
There you go. I feel like everybody binged The Bear very quickly. I'm halfway through that, but yeah, I feel like we talked about your impressions on that. Other than that, you gonna check out Deadpool Wolverine very soon here?
Gonna check out Deadpool and Wolverine soon. Twisters is on my list. I'm actually taking myself on a dad solo day excursion. I'm gonna go check out Longlegs this Saturday, the Nick Cage horror movie that everybody's freaking out about. Because obviously my wife is not a fan of that kind of stuff, so it's perfect for me to sit in the overpriced movie theater and buy a $15 IPA and a big tub of popcorn and get grossed out by the Nick Cage.
For sure. Oh, that's such a nice way to treat yourself, Ross. Happy you get to do that. This seems like the summer of the Hawk-Tuah girl. Is she going away anytime soon, Ross?
I think she actually just went away today because I saw a video right before we went on, and she was hyping up a crowd at some event and nobody was hyped. So I think she's on her 16 minute of her 15 minutes of fame. It's over.
Stop trying to make her famous. Don't
She had a good run though. Good for her.
Certainly did. As I talked about at the beginning of the show, and it's been a while since Not Like Us dropped in this, and all the songs that dropped between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. But as far as songs of the summer go, we've had pretty good albums come out. Kate Trinata, it feels like that album of the summer theme music for me. Krugman also, but as far as one song dominating airplay, it's definitely Not Like Us. And I know we both are fans of Dissect, but it was cool to listen to the whole dissection of not only the song but the music video, and just how Kendrick just picked apart Drake, and Drake couldn't be happier, I heard, though. So these two are winning very much because of all this publicity, and Drake, whatever,
both their streams are sky high right now.
Whatever they drop after this, it doesn't matter, because they're streaming when they haven't dropped anything besides those songs. They're both just laughing all their way to the bank. But but Kendrick obviously just ended it. And this is
drop the album.
What we expected. Please drop the album.
Drop the album, Kendrick. That's the only thing that we're waiting on at this point. Drop the album. Feels like it should be there. Speaking of dropping albums, we're close to a Clips album. We've heard, right? Those guys dropped an album, and we heard a single from Big Sean last Friday. I thought was awesome. His album comes out early August. I was a big fan of that song that he dropped. And speaking of Detroit, Eminem dropped a fun album. I was really impressed with that album that he dropped. The song that he had with JID was just, whew, you put JID and Eminem on a song, and that's just a lyrical dissection right there.
Yeah, I would also say I'm forgetting the name of Denzel Curry's album that just came out. It surprised me, but it was a solid about half hour album, whatever it came out to, but really good features, really good beats, very fun. That Eminem album, I was pleasantly surprised. Not surprised, it just felt like obviously a lot of buildup, and I feel like there's just always going to be haters out there for Eminem, but it was very appropriate, him sort of saying he doesn't give a fuck about PC culture and all this. It's like, you can't change at this point. Felt like an overarching theme to that album. Good features, like you said, with JID and company and Jelly Roll. Very enjoyable.
Yes.
Did Diddy, last question to you, Ross, did Diddy have a hand in ordering the Tupac hit? TMZ is like the only noteworthy news source these days, breaking it down for us.
You know what? I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I think there was a lot of chicanery on both sides of him and Biggie.
All right, Jackie Giles, settle down.
Listen, it wouldn't surprise me if even Suge Knight had a hand in it, right? How does somebody who's 320 pounds not get hit in a car like that with all those bullets? But I digress. And also, Suge don't come for me.
Suge could be listening right now. I want to piss him off, that's for sure. Don't want to make an enemy of Suge Knight even now. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks to everybody for watching, listening in on YouTube, and following the Barroom Network. Remember, at Barroom Network on all social media for all breaking Bears news and Bears coverage in the offseason and as we get ready for the 2024-25 season. Remember to follow us on social media. Follow me at 311Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Reed. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. If you missed any of the show, of course, it'll be up on iTunes and Spotify audio-only versions, and YouTube, of course, right after this episode. But for now, everybody be good to each other. We appreciate you. For now, we say deuces. So long, everybody.
Peace.